In this third and final phase of our JSON demo project, we're going to code the pop-ups and dialogs for our project, in which we're going to show the details of the selected individual from our collection view and the bio here coming from ChatGPT. We've already coded that. We just need to display it. The ability to dismiss someone, or in the case of like, this should have been Harry Carey instead of Harry Carrot. I can click on that. And I could choose to update the record. Now I want to point one thing out here, is it gave me a bio. And this is not the bio for Harry Carey. It's a fictional bio for somebody named Harry Carrot, because writers use ChatGPT to develop information for fictional characters. But we want to be able to update this. So I'm going to click the update button, get the update pop-up, and be able to make a change and say Harry Carey update. And then I should be able to scroll up and down, it'll refresh, and there is Harry Carey. And now I can click on that. I got to click on another person first. Dismiss, come back was already selected, so there's no change in selection to trigger the pop-up. And now I get Harry Carey, who was the Cubs broadcaster for years and had the catchphrase, "Holy cow." This is an accurate bio for Harry Carey. But maybe I want to delete a record. So we have another option here, a final pop-up to delete a record, and we could choose delete or we could cancel. So that's what we're going to do in this final phase. Let's jump back into our project in Visual Studio. We've already made a few changes to our PersonPopUp.xaml and PersonPopUp.xaml.cs files so we could test in the previous phase, but we still have more work to do here. So we've created this as a Mopups pop-up page. I'm going to take the title out and replace that with a background color of a transparent black, a semi-transparent black. So the first 77 here is the transparency channel, and then the remaining zeros, of course, are black. This will give us a dark gray background. It's going to gray everything behind our pop-up, or our mop-up in this case. We're also going to set it to close when background is clicked equals false. So we don't want them to click outside of the dialog and close it. We want to make this a modal dialog, that they have to interact with it in order to close the dialog. We want to take out the vertical stack layout and the label that are part of our default template. And instead I added a border with a background color of light cyan, stroke of black, stroke thickness of 3. Gave it a width request of 300 and a height request of 460. And I played around with those numbers a little bit previously to see what's going to be the best size. Sometimes you just have to experiment with the sizing on these things, see what works best for the amount of contents being returned by ChatGPT in this case. Then we have a vertical stack layout and set the padding to 10. It has a label named LBL name. The text is currently name. We'll change that in code. Gave it a text color of dark blue and centered it at the top. And then below that is a label called LBL about. That's going to has a text of about, but this is going to be the brief bio that ChatGPT returns from the cloud. And then I have a horizontal stack layout below that gives us our 2 image buttons, one to update, one to delete. Those are each going to call Community ToolKit pop-up pages, and then a button, just a normal button, to dismiss. So we have 3 things to code in the code behind. That's going to be the update rec, the dismiss pop-up, and the delete rec. Those are our event handlers from those 3 different buttons and image buttons. Let's go into the code behind our XAML.cs and code those events. So we've already created this as a mopups.pages.popup page, but we're going to use the Community ToolKit within this to add some pop-ups. So I want to add in our using Community ToolKit.maui.views directive. That will become active as we add in code. Now we passed the constructor 2 strings, FN and A, the full name, and then the about information, our ChatGPT generated information. So in the constructor, I'm going to change the LBL name.text to represent the FN, the full name, and the about, LBL about, label text to equal that bio that's being returned, that A. Next, I want to create the event handlers for those 3 buttons that we had at the bottom. And so through the magic of video, here are my 3 codings for these. Now I'm getting some squigglies under the show pop-up here, and that's because we haven't created our update record pop-up and our delete record pop-up as being Community ToolKit pop-ups yet. So those will go away as we create out those pages. But let's take a look at the code here for those 3 buttons. The dismiss pop-up simply calls the mopups.services.mopupservice.instance, and we're going to pop this mopup off the mopup stack. Then on the update rec, we're using this .show popup, and we're going to pop up a new update record popup. That's going to be the page we're going to build out here in a minute. And same with the delete record popup. So again, the squigglies are just because we haven't defined those pages as being Community ToolKit pop-ups. But notice that this has become active, it's recognizing we're using a command from the Community ToolKit. So the next step then is to go into our update record XAML, and let's code that. We're going to add the Community ToolKit namespace to our project. So XML NS, we're going to call it MCT for MAUI Community ToolKit, is going to equal, and we're going to add the CLR namespace of Community ToolKit.maui.views, and assembly being the Community ToolKit.maui. Then we can change the content page to be MCT:popup. And that'll fix our ending tag. So title is not part of our pop-up. I'm going to get rid of that. Before we make changes to the XAML code, let's go into our update.cs file. And I want to add a using directive here for the Community ToolKit.maui.views. And then we can change the content page here to be a pop-up. Now let's go back to our XAML. And I'm going to add one more thing here, and that is can be dismissed by tapping outside a pop-up. I want that to be false. Now let's get rid of our template that we had. And again, through the magic of video, I added a border with a background color of light green, black, stroke thickness of 3, and then a vertical stack layout where we're going to create a title that says update record, and then a label with the person's name that we're updating. Then we have 3 horizontal stack layouts, one for first name in an entry, one for the last name in an entry, one for the occupation in an entry, much as we had in the add records. You could copy and paste from the add records and just change the names here. I did entry update first name, entry update last name, entry update occupation. And then I have 2 buttons. One labeled update, the text, and the other has text of cancel. Different colors, green and dark green and dark red. And then the events here are update record and cancel. So we'll code those in our code behind. So let's go to the code behind. We'll go back there. I begun by adding a couple class level variables here. One is an integer called update ID. And then I have strings for update last, update first, update occupational, and update full. And then in the constructor, I'm updating those variables from our person that was being passed from the data list. So we have update ID equals data list.currentPerson.id, and the same for the last name, the first name, and the occupation, and the full name. Then we update our label name and our 3 entries to reflect those values. And then I'm going to code those 2 buttons. So here's our update record button. Actually, let's do the cancel button first. This is the simplest one. So our cancel button is simply this.close. Nothing happens. For our update record, though, we're going to set the data list.currentPerson.firstname to whatever the value is of that entry update first name text property. And we'll do the same for the last name and the occupation. I'm going to give a little delay here of 1/10 of a second. And then we're going to set the full name and the initials, calling those 2 methods of get full name and get initials. I paused just 1/10 of a second to make sure that everything was updated before we made that call. Then I'm going to delay another 1/10 of a second. And then we're going to set the index number to that find index. Remember, the update ID may not correspond to the index. So let's find the index number in our person list from the home page. We're going to update people for that index number record with our current person. We'll serialize our list of people back out to the JSON string, home.json data. We're going to write that JSON data back out to our application directory data file. We're going to close that, and then we're going to wait the Mopup service and have it pop this page off of the stack. Next, let's do the delete record popup. And to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to go back to my update record popup XAML, and let's just get the header here. I'm going to copy that, go back to our delete record XAML page, paste. We'll change this to MCT popup. I'm going to go into the delete record XAML.cs. Let's add our directive of using Community ToolKit .maui.views, and we'll change this content page to be a pop-up. Then we can come back to our XAML. We're going to get rid of the title here and change this to can be dismissed by tapping outside the pop-up and set it to false. Next, let's get rid of our template code. And this one's pretty simple. We're just going to have a border. I'm going to set the background to dark red, and then a vertical stack layout. The label says delete record, and the person's name and a label, and then a label saying, are you sure you want to delete this record? That's going to be our prompt in this custom dialog. And then 2 buttons in a horizontal stack, one to delete and one to cancel. And we'll have a clicked event of delete yes and a clicked event of cancel no. And you can see the attributes that I set there for those different labels and for the buttons. Well, let's go back to our C# code. In our constructor, we're going to set LBL name.text equal to the data list.currentperson.fullname. So we're updating that information. And then we need to code those 2 buttons. For our cancel no, it's just going to be this.close as we saw on the previous pop-up. And for the delete yes, we're going to find that index number for this person on our home person list. As long as that index number is not 0, we're going to remove that index number using remove.at for home.people. We will update the JSON data as we did earlier. That's our data string. So we're serializing the list. Then we're going to write that out to our application directory, close that file, and then use pop async to remove this dialog from our Mopups stack. Well, let's test and see if everything works. So we're told there were 6 records from before. I'm going to go into my data list. Let's click on Mickey Mantle. There's our pop-up. It tells information about Mickey Mantle playing for the New York Yankees. I can dismiss that. I'm going to click Hank Aaron. And maybe on Hank Aaron, I want to update that and say, let's make this Henry Aaron. I'll update. Now we don't see the change immediately. If I come back and click the show all, it's resetting my list. Now I can click on Henry Aaron. I'm going to click on Alfred Hitchcock. I'm going to dismiss that, come back to Henry Aaron. Again, it was already selected, so I needed to select something else, then come back and deselect. And now I'm getting Henry Aaron at the top, and it's saying Henry Aaron rather than Hank Aaron. I can dismiss that. What if I want to get rid of somebody? Let's take Stan Musial, and I want to remove Stan Musial. If I click cancel, then nothing happens. But if I come back and click delete, and I now say show all, Stan Musial is gone from the list. So everything seems to be working. I can come back and add more people and update that data list. That concludes our JSON demo project. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the .NET MAUI Practicum playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos I create, you can click my picture in the top right to subscribe to the channel.